Hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining our webinar. My name is Paulina. I'm a community manager and I will be its moderator. Today we're going to talk about how you can create more advanced content using iSpring right out of the box. And we have a very special guest, Michael Sheyahshe. Hi Michael, how are you doing today?
Hey, thank you, Paulina. Very well. Glad to be here.
Yes. So Michael is a technologist at Alternative Media, and he has over 2 decades of experience in information technology, e-learning, and innovation across different industries. And he has given many public presentations, demonstrations, and BYOL sessions on innovation and creativity in e-learning. And today this superhero has joined us to speak for all of you iSpringers. Thank you, Mike, again.
Yes, thank you very much. So, hello everyone, and thanks to iSpring for doing this webinar, and it's good to meet you all, so to speak. My name is Michael Sheyahshe, and I will tell you a little bit more about myself, but first let's jump right in, and I will share my screen.
If you could hold on for a moment, and I will greet everybody else, because
Sounds
today
good.
we also have Brian Tarr. Hi, Brian. What's up?
Hi, what's up, Paulina?
Brian is our wonderful systems engineer. He has been working in technical support for a pretty long time, and now he is creating video tutorials for all of you guys. So you might have seen some of his videos on iSpring official website or our YouTube channel. At the end of this webinar, Brian will take care of all the super hard technical questions in the Q&A session. So if you guys would like to learn something about iSpring and you want to ask about it, don't hesitate to submit your questions in the question box on the right side of the GoToWebinar panel. And we also have today with us Anna C. Hi Anna, how are you?
Hi Paulina, hi everyone. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm good, thank you very much for asking. Anna is our customer care manager and she works with iSpring clients helping them to decide how iSpring can be a perfect fit for their needs. And at the end of this webinar, Anna will tell you about special offers running, so you guys might want to stay till the very end of this event. And at this point, I think that I'm ready to pass over the mic to Michael. So Michael, this is your chance to speak.
It's my one chance to shine. Thank you
Right.
very much. Yeah, pass the mic to Mike. So. All right, everyone. To save on the bandwidth, I'm turning off my video, and we'll begin sharing my screen in just a moment. Okay. You should be seeing, pardon me, you should be seeing my first screen, so if not, it'll be just a moment. So welcome everyone again, and the title today is Create More Advanced Content in iSpring right out of the box. So we'll be using no special code or tools outside of what you would get from iSpring itself. So again, my name is Michael Sheyahshe, and I'm here in the U.S. I'm an artist and developer and technologist at Alternative Media, small studio here in the Oklahoma City area. We specialize in developing creative and innovation content for local, state, federal, and Native American indigenous entities around the globe. So. If you're interested, I'll be showing a demo today that I presented and getting into some nuts and bolts from it. I presented it at the recent 2016 Focus On Learning conference from the E-Learning Guild in Austin. Also, if you would like to tweet about it, you can retweet me at @massedev, @mass_edev. My middle name is Alan, that's why that A is there. So, and at the end, I'll show you this as well. You can also contact me if you have questions, sheyahshe@gmail.com. So, the screen again, but for now, let's go ahead and move on. So, here's an image from the demo, and a lot of what I'll be talking about today is from my background in information technology. I have quite a bit of experience. I started out in academia, so I started out in universities and colleges for quite a number of years producing content, digital learning, digital media. And so as I develop and create content, I always think of my audience, and I always try to make sure that I allow whatever the message is or the story is to drive that content. So keep that in mind as we move forward. So I use the same approach in the demo that I created for the eLearning Guild. So within that, you can see the still image of the 3D model that I put inside the content. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that later. So I feel like it's very important for designers, ISDs, developers, programmers, as we develop content to keep in mind the importance of storytelling, simply because that's exactly what we're doing as developers. We are telling a story. We are giving objectives, we are giving content, we are trying to communicate ideas to our audience, learners, and other endpoints. So we have done this for quite a while, and in fact I've given topics and presentations on it about how we can use other media, such as pop culture media, as comic books and other things, to tell this message more succinctly and in an effective manner. Because we are developing in a very constrained area, sometimes a mobile environment, sometimes a window screen on a desktop, we are actually trying to extend that canvas out towards infinity, meaning we're bringing in and pushing out information onto a very visible area. And in fact, right now I'm giving you a message here in this screen, in this screen share, and I can bring in other stuff or push it out. So we call that the infinite canvas, and I borrowed that from Scott McCloud, who wrote several books on how we understand comics, and I'd suggest if you are interested going to check it out. It's a wonderful book. It really tells you a lot about language and how we understand and how the mind works, and visual rhetoric. So check it out if you can. So what I do differs from the norm generally because I actually have quite a bit of pop culture reference in my blood. I grew up with things like Choose Your Own Adventure, which was a fantastic series for young readership, wherein you would have a main story, but then it branches off depending on what choices you make. Simple ideas such as, you've come to a door, would you like to open the door or run away? These things become very, a great experience in addition to just allowing you to consume the media. So while there's a lot of theories and instructional design principles of experiential learning and such, I'm not going to get into that today. However, I do want to give you a background that I always prefer to create content that's more choose your own adventure-like than it is page-turner. And for any of you that remember or have seen Choose Your Own Adventure, they're wonderful. In fact, I remember, having my fingers at different places in the book itself, trying to read with all my fingers in the pages, holding it so I could go back, make a different choice. So at the end, in many of these things, the end would be, oh, you died. And so it was always fun to go back and see what you could do different before you die. As we go through, remember, I always ask, WIIFM, what's in it for me, but in this case, it's what's in it for my audience. As I continue to talk about these things, keep that in mind. These tips are perhaps working, they may work for you or they may not, but think about what is best for your audience. In this case, when I'm presenting information, I want to talk about enriching the content, making the media and audio better. Simple things we can do for this. An example might be taking several slides that would be informational or otherwise not something that the user or learner would necessarily need to interact with, in creating a very small vignette or animation or narrative, which is easy to do in both PowerPoint and iSpring. Another thing that I talk about is what's in it for me or my audience, is engaging the audience however we can, getting our hooks into the audience and dragging them back into our message or our story as much as we can. An example might be making interactions rather than quizzes, and the difference being not necessarily testing someone's knowledge, but more about supporting the story and the theme. Similar to the Choose Your Own Adventure, the idea of those books wasn't that I'm going to force you to learn certain things, but I'm going to create an experience that supports this whole story. So we'll get into more quizzes a little bit later. So here's an example, a concrete example of what I was discussing, creating animation and such using these slides in PowerPoint and leveraging both its foundational framework of animation, timings, triggers, media, transition, but within it creating a series of slides that supports and augments your existing story. Now again, remember this is from my demo at the recent DemoFest. I will turn up my audio a bit, but you can see the example. Everything you see here was done in PowerPoint and then exported as a movie and included as part of the total package published in iSpring. Here we go.
My name is Ash. It wasn't always like this. I had a real life once. I had a wonderful girlfriend. Together we drove to a small cabin in the mountains. It seems an archaeologist had come to this remote place to translate and study his latest find. Necronomicon Ex Mortis, the Book of the Dead. Bound in human flesh and inked in blood, this ancient Sumerian text contained bizarre burial rites, funerary incantations, and demon resurrection passages. It was never meant for the world of the living. The book awoke something to remember. It took Linda, and then it came me. It got into my hand and went bad. So I locked it off with the rest. But that didn't stop it. It came back. Big time.
Okay, hopefully that didn't blow out your speakers. So again, really what we're talking about in all of this is just creating content that is enriched and augments your story, theme, content, or other series of things that you need to present. So today I'll be talking about some important items, slide branching, or not necessarily slides, but page branching, augmenting what you have with web objects and the iSpring simulations. All of these are available inside the iSpring suite as is. So, and I find the Presentation Explorer probably one of the most important tools, probably not the most, but a very integral tool. Here's why. As I look at it, I can get a 50,000-foot view or really top-level view that's very clear about what I expect my audience or users to see and get. I can go slide by slide. I can have branching by quiz. And again, this, going back to the choose your own adventure. So taking a quick look, and we'll go to my demo itself. The Presentation Explorer is here from the iSpring tab if you're inside of PowerPoint. And while I won't go, into details, you can explore it on your own. An example of what I used here, if it pulls up, is, making certain parts of my demo only available as a hierarchy mode given certain choices. And we can go through a few of those a little bit later. But basically, really easy to use, really easy to view, understand, and so probably one of the unsung heroes, in my opinion, is Presentation Explorer. So we'll talk about using web objects, and again, this is a really great way to shortcut and add interactivity. In my case, I used a third-party website and brought in one of my 3D models to allow people to navigate it and view it in real time and to play with the model, right there on the phone or right there on the iPad or whatever I had available to demo it, to show, the things that went into making this demo. Now, some other things you might consider at this point: you could extend your scenarios and content with interactions like CodePen if you're talking about code, or anything else that has a cohesive. Even if you had other interactions or drag and drops or what have you that were from other content, you could bring them in here into the iSpring content, and I'll show you this example in just a moment. So, and then, of course, special mention for the iSpring simulation, which I used in a very particular manner. I really liked this, not only for its ease of use and node-based connections from you know, question to answer to question, but also used it in my demo for a very expressive way to have frequently asked questions, and I'll show you that here in a moment. But really great tool, and as you can see, you know, things can go anywhere, they can go back, they can go forward, and you have it all laid out in front of you on the screen. So, going back to what I talked about, you know, using interactions or pushing the interactive portion of it in a choose-your-own-adventure manner rather than just testing knowledge with the quizzes. And we all probably have policies and procedures or are contractually bound in some ways to have pre or post-test, and that's fine. We all know that. We have to do that. But in addition to those, or maybe instead of those, in some cases, if you're able to, we can use quizzes, interactions in ways that support that same story. And I know that you know this. However, I do feel like that it's important to say that we allow this. And also, you know, from the Presentation Explorer to even adding some specific JavaScript, which I won't get into because this is not about code today, you can add very specific branching and results for the quiz, whether they get it right or wrong or number of attempts. And much of that can be controlled in Presentation Explorer or within the quiz creator itself. A lot of sort of lessons I learned, and I want you to keep these in mind. So things are very cross-platform available in iSpring. So when you publish, you know, you can create your player, you can put your logo, all well and good, and you'll see some of those elements as I present mine here in a moment. But make sure that you, when you're creating things, you know, first it's very responsive. Everything looks great, you know, cross-platform. And if you need a player, there's the mobile player apps. But make sure, and here's a screenshot of my actual demo on my phone. Note that it's all there. This is the main menu. But at some point, because of the small form, and again, I held this on portrait versus landscape for a very particular reason, everything is so small it becomes almost hard to read. So you see I'm only taking up maybe you know, a third of my entire screen here because everything is you know, small. So as you create these elements, I'd like to suggest that you test on multiple devices to make sure that you know, things are clickable. Let's say I didn't have those icons and I just had the words that were clickable, the text. It would be very hard for someone to actually interact with that given the small form of it. So those of you that are interested, you know, of course Apple creates a really great guideline for that in the Human Interface Guideline. There's a link for that if you'd like. It's really good reading for developers and people that do visuals on different screens. But again, I just want to remind you, as you do, you know, it looks really good on all these devices, but make sure that the content that's inside of that is something that can be interacted with. So what I'll do now is we'll have some discussion and I'll show you the demo really quick, and then later I'll bring this screen up so you can see the content as well as the demo if you'd like to see it that I'm about to show you on the iSpring Cloud. So let me get to that and I'll pull it up. And I'm not going to play the audio on this one. You've already heard it. Okay, I will play, let's see, I will show you one thing. And this goes back to creating enriched, you know, both audio and visuals. You see it's in the web wrapper here. It's got my icon or my logo. So this was the actual demo I presented. As I click, I'll let you listen to the page transitions. Okay, so as many of you can tell, you know, I borrowed quite heavily in an homage to Army of Darkness, the movie series with Bruce Campbell, the actor, and Sam Raimi and the Raimi brothers. This was my interpretation of it. So you'll see a lot of beg, borrowing, and stealing from that franchise to celebrate it here. So just doing something different. At this case, I wanted the story to push the content further. So you've already seen the introductory video. We can take a quick look at the use of
said anything about 3 books.
Okay, so I'll be turning that down. So again, this is part of the branching scenario. This was all contained and created and controlled by the Presentation Explorer. And I won't go through each of these, but you know, each of these has a very specific result if you choose each of these. And these are just links that are created in PowerPoint. You know, they go to a different slide, but also the links themselves are the direction, previous and back, are controlled with the Presentation Explorer. Again, all of these animations are more like what you would call animatics. If you're familiar with animation terms, they're still images that are put to audio and in a series of just still images. So, when we finally get to choose the right book, we get to see it and use iSpring's interaction, the book, which I thought worked really well for this. As you can see, there are no magic words, everything's blank. You only have to try to use the magic words. In this case, I've used the quiz interaction in order to, again, pull directly from the movie. Many of you may remember the main character, Ash, trying to remember the magic words and getting them wrong, and all sort of trouble happened at this point. So I'll go ahead and put the wrong ones in, and then maybe I can remember the right ones. Okay, nickel verata, definitely an N-word, probably is not right, so let's see what happens. So I got it wrong. I'll try again. And I think it's Klaatu verata nictu. Maybe I got that right. It was fun doing the demo to see how many people remembered, so there we go, got it right. And now that I got it right, I can see the pages in the magic book, or the magic words in this book. So now the book is filled with the images and such. So after we do that, we branch off to the main page again. I will show you the use of a web object, the third-party website. Again, this is a 3D model I added. Nothing special, no special coding. Of course, you know, creating the visuals was something different, but here I'm just sort of playing with it. And you may notice it's in small form. I had a specific size, but you can make this full page if you wanted. Again, this is the model that I used and created for this demo, just to give it sort of a new flavor. So, and again, that's with Sketchfab, and you could, you know, share this, you could put it in, so you would do this like any other object. So, and then here is a demonstration of the iSpring simulation, which I use for a frequently asked question. So as you can see, I really tried to infuse some character into this, making it hopefully have the same flavor of speak that Ash would, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Fancy Pants, you know, so who made this? You know, I made this, so I wanted to tell everybody at the demo, vote for me, and then, sorry, I went too far, restart. Okay, so you can keep going back, you can ask, why was this created? Oh, you want to know why, so, you know, are you for real? No, I was made with 3D models, Poser and Blender, you know, and so I'm made with iSpring. So, check it out, and then we, you know, we can go back in several of these. So these are branching within our extensive branching scenario, but we can use all this into try to capture the story and augment it and push it further. So, and again, this character become, you know, gets to say smart alecky things he may say, you know, from the movies. So, with that, I will go ahead and take any questions. And Paulina, I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Okay. I just also wanted to add that in the Talkmaster, it's possible to also add voiceover.
And there was audio on each of those. However, I had it muted, you know, so.
Okay. Yes, so we do have some questions, and we have a very nice comment from Michael. He said he really liked your demo.
Groovy.
Yes. So the first question is from Robert. Can you relate choose your own adventure concept to technical training using e-learning?
You know, I think that's a question you know, honestly, I've gotten before, and as I've talked with and coordinated with different ISDs and different subject matter experts. It really depends on the story. So certainly any content, in my opinion, can be a choose your own adventure, specifically because our real world environments and scenarios do have consequences, be it positive or negative. So I certainly think you can, and I certainly think you can keep your audience in mind, and I think all of you will agree that there are some audiences that would not appreciate the manner and tongue-in-cheek manner that I created. Let's just generically throw out maybe a business like a bank or an insurance agency. Sometimes those individuals are very strict and have policies. However, even in a technical standpoint, using screen captures, using voiceover, I still believe you can create a choose-your-own-adventure type of interaction. Using iSpring, you can show what would happen if you click the wrong thing. You can show what happens if you click the right thing. You can even go further and see what positives you could receive from higher-ups. So I certainly think it's possible.
Yes, and another question that I think is related, how does one make sure content is not missed when you have pick your own adventure approach?
I think that's really good. So what content would someone necessarily need to see? In my case, notice that there were some instances, like on the books, where the wrong answer allowed you to get eaten by the book or whatever, but that's a good question. So what content is important to show when you get something right, or your audience or your learner, and what content do they need to see if they get it wrong? So that also talks about how many times we need to repeat a question, or do they need to get it both right and wrong. These are some things that need to be considered at the time up front, and development time needs to be given to the designers and developers in order to create those branching scenarios that either loop back or allow someone to go on with just one branch only.
Thank you, Michael. And the question from, I apologize if I mispronounce your name, Erochkia. Will it be possible for you to share the PowerPoint presentation after the webinar?
Certainly, I can share that. Paulina, help me capture that email, please, and I will certainly grab that.
Sure, I will definitely do that.
Right, and so anyone else, so I'm going to, Paulina, if I could share my screen just real quickly, I'll show the screen that has my contact information. To show and stop. So just you can continue with the questions, but I'm going to show that screen so everyone has it. So.
Perfect.
Okay, so it should be up now. I'll leave it up for just a few moments and then go back to video. So.
Yeah, so everybody who's interested in getting in touch with Michael, make sure to take a screenshot or write down his contact details. Mike is also working on helping people in content production. So if you need the help in course creation or anything like that, you're more than welcome to contact Michael as well. So the next question is from Daniel. How do you get that A&M logo in the top right of the presentation window?
Okay, and I'm sharing my screen, so let me go to the PowerPoint itself, not the one on the cloud, but, and I was able to get that in the publish settings, and there's a way to customize, what the next and left buttons and the colors and such, so hopefully everyone can see my screen here. If we go from the publish settings, we can choose which slides, and again, I'm going to choose for the web. We can do HTML5 only or Flash, but when we go in the, I believe it's the customized area, we can see, it's at the top bar.
Yeah, you can just click the logo right there in the preview.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and usually it'll be a placeholder that says logo or whatever, so yeah, thank you. Okay, and I'll get rid of that. So good question.
Thanks, Michael. And there were a couple of questions asking how much time did it take to create this type of course?
It took a while to experiment with what I wanted to do, and I didn't capture the hours, so that's a good question. As probably, it's probably a given that creating the 3D model and making it look like ash probably took the most part of time. After that, though, it became a matter of look and feel and content and grabbing audio from, the actual movies and such. So this sort of interaction, we're looking at, 21, 22 slides total, give or take. And of that, let's see, there's a good, this is the, let's see, making sure, so of that, there's a good 10 or 12 that are for the animation only. Honestly, I couldn't tell you. If I just had to sort of throw a number out, I'd say maybe 120 development hours, from start to finish. And that's a real coarse guess, meaning a really broad guess. I couldn't actually tell you how many there were.
Okay, thank you. Another question from a couple of people in the chat, sort of related to what you've been talking about just now. Can you name the tools or maybe complete a list of them that you've used, like any additional tools that were used besides iSpring Suite?
Well, the only tool used to create was PowerPoint, of course, with the animations and transitions and such, and iSpring. Now, the actual content where you would get into it, I used Poser, Blender. These are 3D modeling programs. I used Photoshop, to clean up the images after. So these are things that you would normally see on your production part of your pipeline. And in addition, things like, Adobe Audition to edit the sound bites and such. So these are just from the production standpoint. The actual creation, the HTML5 demo and app was only in iSpring.
Would you recommend Adobe Audition to manage the audio? Because one of the questions was, what tools would you recommend for managing the audio?
That can be managed in any number of software suites. I just particularly have the subscription to Adobe, so I use Adobe Audition. I've also used Sound Booth by Adobe. A lot of people, if you need a free resource, use Audacity, A-U-D-A-C-I-T-Y. It's a free resource you can download and use. I have used Audacity quite a bit over the years. I sometimes find it a little kludgy, but it does do the job, and it does edit quite nicely. So.
Right, and a lot of our clients were using Audacity before we implemented the built-in sound manager into iSpring.
Right.
So
that's a great that's a great tool to trim and to use in the audio, and I could have certainly used that. I think one reason I went with an outside tool obviously was because I was bringing in outside audio and wanted to make sure that I had the levels set correctly and such, and that I scrubbed it. So that was my particular need at that point.
Right. And the next sort of common question from Sherry: for boring software training, creating users, groups, etc., do you have any suggestions on how to make it not so dry and boring? Are there any videos I can see others training on software usage? Are there any ways to create exercises, labs that are interactive for the user? I don't see iSpring has this feature.
Well, and I think we could talk about different ways to do this, and that may be another discussion, but there are certainly ways to create interactive video, that a screencast or that allows you to take material that's very dry, and in this case, I took material that was several slides long and made an animation. So I think there's many ways to do it, but you need to plan that ahead before you just start developing it. So.
Right, and imagination is the limit, I guess.
Certainly.
So we have a very nice comment from Pamela, super content, Michael, and then another comment from Kelly, scary content, but great use of interactions, branching, and animations. So moving on, a question from Mikhail. You mentioned JavaScript. Can you add JavaScript to customize your iSpring project? And maybe Brian, you could help with that?
Yeah, Brian, help me follow
Yeah.
up on this one. So I'll just add real quickly that, of course, if you brought in a exterior web object into your slide, like I brought in the 3D model, if that has JavaScript in it, but that also there's an area in the quizzes to add JavaScript. But that's my only thoughts there. Go ahead.
Yeah, you pretty much covered it. With web objects and with quizzes, you can add JavaScript.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, guys. And the next question, is this video shown, was it published to SCORM? What is the format of the file?
Right, so it's HTML5 only, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't have been published to SCORM. My demo was simply one that was self-contained within HTML5. Now, I could have made the quizzes or the drag and drop interactions or even the end of the content when it closes fire off CMS completion for SCORM. I did not. And of course, a lot of that, Brian, is this correct? You would handle that within the published area?
Right.
Right. So yeah, so I did not. Now you can certainly do that, but I didn't need to for this particular one. It wasn't going to go inside an LMS, so there was no need to be SCORM or XAPI compliant.
Great. And can the dialog be input by XML files?
I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend just using the interface because, I mean, XML would just be all that much extra work for you to do. So I would recommend doing it just directly in the tool. It really doesn't take long.
Right. And another really, really nice comment from Catherine. Great work with the Talkmaster demo. I never thought of using cartoons with changing characters to create an interesting story. So thank you, Michael, for sharing this wonderful approach.
Yeah.
Good. That's very good to hear.
Right. And the next question should probably be addressed to Brian. I'm new to iSpring. Can you tell a little bit more about branching or where I can find info on how to do it?
Yeah, sure. So let me share my screen here. Okay. Okay, you see it?
Yep.
Right, so here I am in the PowerPoint interface. I have a regular presentation here. And let's say, for example, you wanted to add a quiz. You would just create a new slide and click the quiz button. And you can just open a recent quiz if you already have one, or you can create a new one from scratch. And then save and return to course. Might take a few seconds if you have a lot of rich media in your quiz. And once it's in there, then you go to the Presentation Explorer. And as you can see here, it's on slide number 8. And what you would do is you could click the branching button right here, but there's also a branching column where as Michael said, you can get a, what was it, 50,000 foot view? Mm-hmm. And you can see which slides have branching applied to them. And since this is a quiz, then you have special quiz branching. If the user passes, then you can send them to the next slide or whatever slide you like. And if they fail, for example, you could send them right back to the beginning of the presentation. And that's shown right here. The red X represents on fail, and the green check mark represents on pass. So you can really see where this branching will lead. So if they pass, it'll take them to slide 2. If they fail, it'll take them to slide 1. And that works for quizzes as well as simulations. And it doesn't necessarily need to be pass and fail. As Michael said, it doesn't necessarily have to be an evaluation. It could just be a way to immerse the user further into the content in your course. And then once you're done, you just click Save and Close. Or if you want to cancel your changes, as I want to do, you just X out of it and select Don't Save. So, great question. Hello.
I think, Paulina, you may have been muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that again. Just wanted to say that before we move on to the next questions, I wanted to quickly pop up a poll question and see what you guys think about this webinar. So my question would be, are you planning to implement what you've learned during this webinar for your projects, e-learning projects that you are currently working on? Yes, probably, maybe, no. And I would like to thank you again, Michael, for your very the very useful information that you've been sharing. And also, while I was reading the comments and questions from webinar attendees, I decided that we will probably have a blog post written for this webinar, and it will be available on iSpring official blog on our website, ispringsolutions.com. And I think it will be a good place to share the recording of this webinar and also the PowerPoint presentation that you might have been using during this webinar, if that is okay with you, certainly.
Sounds great.
Okay, perfect. So I see that almost everybody has taken the vote, and I will stop the poll right now. Thank you very much, guys. And I think that we're ready to move on to the next question that we have. It's from Carrie. Michael mentioned that you should test modules across different smartphones and tablets. Is iSpring not responsive in design?
Well, that was one of the things I actually mentioned, is that it is very responsive, and it does a really great job across all the devices. But that one thing I found in my personal content inside of those published files, HTML files, is that some of my elements, such as buttons or interactions, needed to be somewhat larger, and that was my comment.
Okay, thank you very
And
much.
if I could just step in here very quickly, if you don't happen to have a device handy, or if the logistics just don't make sense for you actually publishing it out, what I strongly recommend you do is to use the preview function in iSpring. And you can even do it slide by slide. Say if you have a slide that contains a lot of animations or clickable buttons like this, you can just select preview selected slides, and then what that will do is it will open up a presentation preview window, and you can select the different device types right here to see exactly how it will look. And as Michael said, some of the texts get a little small on a smartphone, but you can also rotate it to see how it will look if the user actually rotates. So yes, it does. It responds to the accelerometer inside your smartphone, so it'll rotate when you need to rotate, and it supports pinch and zoom and all that great stuff.
Thanks a lot.
That's a great point. Thank you.
Yep. A question from Tanya. For recording audio externally and then adding to each slide, do you have any tips or suggestions to ensure high quality audio?
High quality audio. Well, I would recommend, as Michael said, if you're on a tight budget, you could use something like Audacity. But also iSpring has a built-in audio editor. Let me just go here very quickly. So I'm just going to record a little bit of audio right here. Oh, it wants me to do the setup wizard. Well, as long as this is open, I might as well just tell you. If you're recording for the first time, it will automatically open this microphone setup wizard, that's a great way to manage the quality of your audio. Right now I'm using a professional microphone, so I'm going to select that. And it wants me to read a little bit of text here. I hope I won't have to actually read about the fluffy cat, but once it sufficiently picks up a signal from your microphone, then you can click Next and finish setting up. Now we're ready to start recording. So I'm just going to record a little bit of audio here and click Done. So now what I can do is I can select this audio here on the timeline and click Edit Clip. And as I said before, I'm using a professional microphone, but if you're using a built-in laptop or webcam mic, then you will see a lot of noise here. So right now I actually have a flat line, but what you'll see is a little fuzzy line. What you can do is select only the noise and then click Remove Noise. And what that does is it removes the noise from the rest of your audio sample. And if you're using a third-party program like Audacity, any program worth its salt will have a noise removal. But it's just a lot easier to do it right here in the iSpring interface. And there are other techniques you can use to improve your audio quality. I believe we have a blog post about that, which you're welcome to check out.
So you would recommend not using external programs, but
Well,
actually do it within iSpring.
Yeah, just for convenience sake, and
right.
actually audio noise removal is half the battle right there.
Yep, that's true. So we have a question about characters. Is it possible to create a dialogue or conversation between two characters only using iSpring through simulation?
That's a feature request, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So currently we support single character interacting with the user, but we will have multiple character support soon.
Right. And another question from Nicholas is for Michael. Hello, how Michael technically managed to have the gray book once tried? Like it's not the good book to pick. Thank you.
I guess we better let you share your screen for that, right, Michael?
Right. Let's see.
If you like.
Mm-hmm.
I got you.
And I believe I know what they're referencing. Oh, I keep pulling up the one on iSpring Cloud. So I believe you're talking about this one here, and it's simply an image, and so it's basically I duplicated this slide here where the image is good, and went in and formatted the image just using the PowerPoint artistic effects. It looks like I have applied a blur and also added a color correction of saturation down to 33%. So with that in mind, if I just resetted the picture, you see that it goes back to normal. There's any number of ways you could do this, and of course you could do this in an external program like Photoshop or something. However, I just wanted to use some inherent tools inside PowerPoint.
Okay. Are you still there?
I am still
We're
here.
all still
Sorry.
here.
Okay, good. I thought I was disconnected for a moment. Okay, thank you very much. And a question from John. Is there a way to collect data that confirms that a student has completed the presentation? Also, is there a way to see what answers students gave?
That sounds like one I could cover.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Right. Let me just share my screen. Right, so if you are using an LMS, then as Michael said before, you would select that option in the publishing settings, and here on the Learning Course tab, just select whichever format your LMS is using. And if you're not using an LMS, what you can do is, for example, put a little quiz right at the end of the presentation. So Once you branch through the entire presentation, you could insert a little quiz right at the end, and then in that quiz, you would go to the properties and go to the results section and check this box, send quiz result to email. And what you could do is put your, oh yes, this would be your email address right here. So you could receive results to your own email address. So if the user passes or fails, you could have it sent either way. And you can customize the email here if you like. I actually believe I saw another question up there somewhere in the questions asking about customizing the email. Yes, you can do that right here. This is the text of the email, and there are some variables here which show the quiz title and the quiz status. And you can also use the quiz taker's name and email if available, and the way you capture that is here on the main tab, ask for quiz taker information, customize, and just make name and email mandatory.
Right.
And that will be a little form.
Sorry?
That'll be a little form that shows up right at the beginning of the quiz.
Right. So I guess that we can cover the name from, sorry, the question from Shripad. Does this export to a SCORM compliant package?
Right. So as I showed you before, and also here in the quiz publishing settings as well. Whether you're publishing the entire course or just a single quiz, it's the same convenient interface. And yeah, so you would select LMS, go to the Learning Course tab, and it's got 1.2 and 2004, second, third, and fourth edition. So we've got you covered.
Right. Thank you very much, Brian. And we still have some time left. So I would like, at this point, before we move on to the next group of questions, hand the mic to Anna so that she could tell our audience about the special offers running right now. Anna, would you please mind doing that?
Sure, thank you, Paulina. Well, hi everyone. This is Anna. I'm a customer care manager at iSpring, and I wanted to make sure you guys know that we have a few special offers running right now. And well, some of you have been using iSpring Suite for quite some time, while others are just getting started. And you can get nice discounts on new purchases, additional licenses, as well as upgrades. So simply leave your contact information in the chat box, and I'll get back to you after the webinar with more information about our special offers. So feel free to send your contact information and get started with iSpring Suite right away.
Thank you very much, Anna. So in case we were sending out mailings, so in case you guys didn't receive them, we just wanted you to know about our special offers. And we are ready to move on to the next question. Michael, some animations looked very cool but difficult to build. Do you usually need much time to do that?
That's a good question. You know, animations and any external content or media can, you know, add a significant amount of time, or it can be done rapidly. And so one reason I chose to just use the inherent tools inside PowerPoint was sort of a challenge, was to see what I could do with those tools to make it look very animation-like, as well as you know, sort of keep everything in the same house as far as development. So it depends. It depends on the level of creativity and the level of you know, the staff and resources at your disposal. You know, if it's one of those things that, in this particular instance, I was a one-man shop, I was an army of one, so to speak, creating, you know, as a designer, developer, programmer, and what have you, of this particular demo and course, it just made a lot more sense to do it as quickly as possible. So anytime you have enriched content, which is sort of what we were talking about today, it will add time to the pipeline and development. So you need to make sure, if you're managing the project, that you make sure you include enough time to cover that. And to do so effectively, you need to really coordinate with your production managers or production team.
Thanks a lot, Michael. And the question from Pamela. All examples I found are normally not of a technical nature where where can I find some examples to show how we can incorporate this kind of e-learning? So I guess she meant
Um,
approach.
sure. And so, there's obviously this example we've talked about today. There's different communities, that have different development tools. There are people that create templates like eLearning Brothers. They have a lot of creative ways to use existing development tools, and there's a lot of forums along with that. So I would say go to YouTube occasionally and look at what's playing, not only in the actual content, but in the advertisements as well, to see how media is being presented. And while it may be a buzzword, one thing I found in the last 18 months or so that I find very interesting and wish I could implement more as far as animation and whiteboard animations and e-learning is called kinetic typography. So kinetic typography, wherein there are no pictures of people or humans or things, but everything more or less is created, and the idea and story is created using the words themselves, but very specific animations are needed for that. So that's something to check out. But anyone else have suggestions?
I was just going to paste the link to this demos page on our website, which can give you some ideas of the type of design you can implement in your courses. There are a lot of different, these are a couple of my favorites right here actually, these anatomy courses. So there are a lot of great ideas right here, and they also obviously show off the capabilities of iSpring and being able to convert these flawlessly to online format.
And I will add to what he just said that, remember, I did not show, all the quizzes that are available. Some ones that I was not able to show would be like the hotspot one for quizzes, which I thought would be a really great addition to this particular demo. However, ran out of time for testing and such. But there are a lot of really good ones built in inherent to iSpring Suite.
Yeah, if you want to check out hotspots, Mount Everest is a great quiz for that.
Thank you very much, guys. And a question about transitions. How do I configure the transitions between the slides?
I guess I'll pass that over to you, Michael.
Okay. So transitions you can do them a couple of different ways. Let me minimize this screen. And so in PowerPoint, you will go to transitions, and you notice on this first slide I have nothing. On this next slide, so you'll go slide by slide, or you can apply to all. And depending on how your slide opens, you can do them here. So when I was creating the animation, and I don't have okay, so notice that I was using the shred transition. So at the end of this slide, this red image would be shredded up, and you can see it here. Let me see if I can play it for you, preview this. So each slide can have its own transition. So they're applied here in the transition tab on PowerPoint.
Yeah, that was a much cooler transition than I would have been able to show at a moment's notice.
Yeah, the red really helps push that image, so that's a good question.
Right. Thank you very much. And a question for Brian. Brian's audio is especially good. What mic is he using? What mic are you using, Brian?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's actually an MXL condenser microphone. Cost you about $200. Well worth it.
Thanks.
Sure.
Okay. And do you have any books or references that you would recommend to study, learn Blender 3D modeling? Question from Joseph.
That's a really great question. I have a Master's of Fine Arts in 3D modeling for game and film, but of course, my tool of choice back during my MFA days was Maya. I could have, of course, also chosen 3D Max. But so Blender, open source 3D modeling tool and compositor and game engine, really great tool, free to use, open source. Because it's so, there are so many different items to edit and so many tools inherent inside of it. I've gotten books over the years, but I'll be quite honest, it has such a rich user community and there are so many versions, it's best to just go out and see what tutorials are available. I prefer the ones, say, on YouTube that have screenshots, screencasts, because you can sort of follow along and do it as you go. Everything is customizable in Blender, and you can make, different, you can even, if you're used to, say, the Maya environment, you can customize your tool set in Windows to facilitate and mirror that, so to speak. So I would go, for rather than books, just start searching on YouTube. But there's a really great support group out there and has been for quite a number of years. So good question.
And have you had any experience with developing schematic electrical flow diagrams, showing relays closing, that kind of thing?
Years ago, for a different vendor, we would have used Flash animation to do that. But I believe using simple things like transitions or animations that show hide various images on the slides, it would be very easy to do in both PowerPoint and iSpring.
Thank you. And the question from Lynn, is GarageBand compatible with iSpring, I guess? The Mac.
Not directly.
Cool.
What you would have to do would be to export whatever your project is from GarageBand to MP3, WAV. If you want to keep the full uncompressed audio, 100% quality, then you could export it to WAV and then import it into iSpring.
Oh, thank you very much, Brian. And Michael, do you have a storyboard format you prefer for interactive, meaning pre-planning development?
That's a really good question as well, and that would be very important for the specific animation that I produce. The joke is, of course, whatever whatever my client wants, as far as what client I have at the time and what storyboarding tool they use. I've used everything from Word documents to PowerPoint. I think for the most part, most people use PowerPoint as far as development, and then of course specific tools, say collaboration tools for project management such as Jira or Confluence or Slack. So I think in this case, because everything was sort of filtered through, since iSpring works so well inside that PowerPoint environment, for this interactive tool I would probably have chosen and did choose PowerPoint for the storyboarding process.
Right. That's true. And do you guys, Michael and you, Brian, have any advice for video editing, preferably free tool?
Gee, I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. I mean, it depends on what kind of video editing you need to do. I mean, if you need to do a bunch of special effects, then Adobe After Effects is good. But maybe, Michael, you have some suggestions?
And I think you're right. It depends on what you're doing and what you're doing it on. For instance, I have a Windows machine, so I actually do quite a bit of splicing and dicing of video in the Windows Movie Maker. I believe it's called Windows something, but basically Movie Maker is the editing program. And for After Effects, like compositing, of course a lot of people can use Shake or other things, but weirdly enough, Blender 3D software allows you to composite video as one of its many tools. So that's kind of interesting, and it's free as well. So it does. So if you're on a Mac, you might use iMovie or such. If you do need to do large-scale commercial quality, industry standard is usually Adobe Premiere, but it really depends on the level. You can even do some editing, as you've seen here, in PowerPoint itself.
Right. That's true too.
Yeah.
And now we have a couple of questions about your course that you've created in PowerPoint. So the first one, and the question is for Michael, sorry. How much time it takes to publish these 22 slides? Or I guess how much
Well, and I
time
get,
it took you to publish them?
sure, it probably took, as I mentioned, maybe 120 plus hours to develop and create it. However, publishing is just a few minutes within the publishing settings in iSpring. So, the creation process is always the longest, especially when you're testing things, as I was, sort of on the go and on the fly.
Right. And do
And
you know,
sorry,
sorry?
here it's also worth mentioning that function I showed you earlier about previewing a single slide. If you're already satisfied with a certain part of your course and you want to test a new one, then a great way to do that would just be to select a few slides that you have new effects on, for example, and just preview those few slides so you don't have to publish the whole thing every time.
Yeah, that's a great point, and a great time saver too.
Right.
Yep.
And Michael, what is the size of the final video output or course output? I think you're muted.
Right. Let me see what the total is. Looking at my file, about 50 megabytes. Actually, it's about 40 megabytes. But most of that is the movie, the actual animation movie. It takes up probably more than 2/3 of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Okay,
a good
thank you.
size.
Nice size. Um, so we have a question from, I guess, Basilius. The HTML5 player of iSpring has different results if we see the final file from one computer, laptop, tablet, or a mobile phone. The problem is that sometimes the file may be seen from a tablet as it was a mobile phone. So I guess that's about the cross-platform publishing of the content.
Right. That sounds like something you might want to bring to our support department because you might have specific idiosyncrasies with your project that may be producing those discrepancies. So I would recommend you contact support@ispringsolutions.com and just send them an example.
Right. And a question from Joseph, because I think we have already covered that, but maybe he didn't catch the answer. But he's asking, will iSpring ever contain the functionality to edit and modify the audio so that we won't have to use third-party software outside of the iSpring Sound Manager? So Brian?
Right. So I could show that again if you like. Hang on.
I think that we can just say that now it is possible, and
Yeah, I
in the
think
shared recording of the webinar, you will be able to see the answer to this particular question and the little demo that Brian showed.
right.
So a very good question from Chris. If I have training like this created with iSpring hosted in my Moodle LMS, what options are there to track the user's process? Sorry, I guess progress, I think.
Right, so Moodle is SCORM compliant, so you can just use whatever features are available in Moodle to track it. I actually made a full tutorial on how to create and upload a quiz to Moodle. I don't know if you've already tried uploading to Moodle, but if you like, I can send a link to that in the chat.
Thanks a lot, Brian. And I must say that everybody is crazy about how you, Michael, have used the iSpring TalkMaster tool, because I guess that
Yeah,
this is a
totally.
very unusual approach.
It was one of those things. I appreciate that, by the way, and I just want to let everybody know that I felt like that my demo really needed to show off the TalkMaster simulation, and I needed to show it, and I felt that the FAQ was a really great way to do it. So I had fun with it.
Thank you very much. So the question from Joseph, is it possible to hide slides from some slides from the iSpring outline?
I'm sorry, I'm sending the link right now. Was that for me?
For
Yes, I believe
anybody,
so.
it
Sorry,
was
could
just
you
a,
repeat that?
sure, absolutely. Is it possible to hide slides from the iSpring outline?
Yeah, I could show that if you want real quick. Hang on. Okay. And there's this tutorial, by the way. You see my screen?
Thank goodness
Yes.
you're here, Brian.
Yeah. Okay, so go to Presentation Explorer and then just select a slide and click Hide Slide. Or select
Yay!
multiple and click Hide Slide. In fact, this first one here is hidden, and it won't show up on the outline when you publish.
Magical
So yeah,
Presentation Explorer.
this is actually, yeah, and it's really handy for these choose your own adventures because, I mean, if you send them off on a little side path, sometimes you don't want to show them that all those slides exist. You know, you don't want to have them jump right into the middle of a story arc, for example. So you could just hide all those slides so they don't see it on the outline. So they can basically see on the outline the general points of the presentation, but they won't be able to jump right in the middle and be surprised by something. That's a great way to do that.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
And I have a very interesting comment from April Ross. For you, Michael, this level of development is beyond my skill set. How do I find iSpring Rockstar Ninja like Michael if I want to hire iSpring? And I would say, April, you can definitely hire Michael, I guess. Is that right?
That's right. In fact, it's funny that we talk about people being ninjas and such. In between clients, I sometimes jokingly call myself a technical Ronin. So instead of having a master or a client at that point and being a technical samurai, I'm a technical Ronin. I'm without master at that point. So, you know, there's a whole community of people on iSpring and other HTML5. So myself or any of us and Brian can point you to some people, so just contact us and we can talk about that.
Right, and Michael had his contact details, and if you're interested, I can definitely connect you with Michael after the presentation. Okay, so I think that at this point we're a little bit over our dedicated hour to the webinar. Thank you, Mike. So I think that all the questions that we have not answered at this point, we will return to them via email. So guys, we won't forget about this. We will definitely get back to you. And at this point, I would like to pop up another poll question for you. For those who stayed with us till the very end of the webinar, thank you very much. And I'm going to launch it right now, and I would really appreciate if you could take your time and vote. So do you guys feel like this webinar relates to your current e-learning needs? And the answer is, as usual, yes, probably, maybe, and no. So I would really appreciate if you could take a second and vote.
Yeah, and I just want to take this moment to say, Michael, it's been a real pleasure to see your work, and I hope I'll see you at a conference.
Yes, I hope we can talk as well. So thank you very much for having me and for allowing these webinars to take place. Paulina, you've been a really great help in organizing and getting this together, and iSpring's a great tool to use. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. And we have some comments saying thanks a lot for the webinar. Thank you so much for this very informative session. Thank you, thanks everyone. Thank you guys for joining us. And at this point, I'm going to close the poll. Thanks for taking your time to answer. Yeah, People are saying that it was very helpful, much appreciated for an informative session. So thanks, Michael, Brian, and Anna for making it happen. And next week, we are just wanted to announce a webinar that we're going to have with eLearning Brothers, and we will have Brian as a speaker there, and we will cover the Talkmaster feature. So if you guys would like to join us next week, we will be really glad to see you there. And at this point, we're ready to wrap up, and I'm saying goodbye to everyone.
Yep. Thanks to everyone that attended.
Bye.
Thank
Yep.
you, guys.
Thanks a
Bye-bye.
lot. Bye-bye.